One of the most powerful things you can do to nail an interview is to have great questions to ask at the end of your interview. This is no different when it comes to Ernst Young. At the end of your interview, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions for me? And if you don't, you're not going to get the job. Having great questions shows that you prepared and that you have a high level of interest. So today's video, I'm going to give you some great questions to ask at the end of your Ernst Young interview so you can stand out as a great candidate that they should hire. Now, this is video 4 of a 4-part series. So if this happens to be the first video you're seeing, go to the playlist and watch the first 3. And make sure you stick around to the very end, because at the very end, I will put the next video right here on the screen. All right, well, that being said, let's get started. Okay, so the first question I want you to ask is, what does this person need to accomplish in the first 12 months of being hired in order for you to consider this hire to be a success? This is a great question. It shows that you are future and success oriented. It also gives you an idea, like, are the goals reasonable? I would actually never take a job without asking this question, because I want to understand, like, are the things they expect of me achievable? Another thing that sometimes happens is a hiring manager doesn't have an answer here. They kind of blank out, like they don't even know what success looks like. And that's a huge concern to me, because I never want to take a job where the hiring manager can't articulate to me, here's what I'm expecting of you. So you want to make sure, 1, they know what it is. 2, it seems like it's a reasonable goal. But additionally, you also show that you're someone who is forward-thinking. It is a great question. Hiring managers actually love it when candidates ask this question. Okay, the next question I want you to ask is, how do you see this role contributing to the goals of your department over the next 12 months? This is a really interesting question, right? Because you get to hear them talk strategy. You get to hear them talk goals. And you get to hear them talk about how you will fit into that picture. It also, again, makes you look like a really smart candidate. It is a smart question. It is a strategic question, and it allows you to riff off of their answer. If they go, oh, well, this person's going to be involved, they're going to do A, B, and C, you can say, oh, that's really interesting. I really enjoy that part of my current role, and I've actually done A, B, and C for the last few years, and you can talk about it, and you can position yourself as a really powerful candidate, strong candidate, a mission-aligned candidate. And it's a great question to ask in the interview. Okay, the next question I want you to ask is, what is your favorite part about working at Ernst Young? This is a good question because it allows them to talk a little bit about themselves. Studies show that when people get to talk about themselves, they remember a conversation more positively. So this gives the person who is interviewing you a chance to talk a little bit about themselves, why they like it here, why they came here, why they stay here. It also is really meaningful because you can take notes on what they're saying and you can put that into a thank you email. So later today, after you leave your interview, you can say, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really enjoyed our conversation. It also really stood out to me when you talked about A, B, and C. I found it to be really motivating, and I'm excited about next steps in the process. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, Ben. And there you go. Like a bland, like just sent out thank you email does nothing, but one that's like personalized and references something that's meaningful to the interviewer that they shared during an interview, that is incredibly powerful. Okay, so the next question I want you to ask is, in the past, what separated the good from great employees on your team? It's really interesting because, 1, they might never have been asked that question before. And what you'll see is real time, them sit there and think about, okay, well, who are the best people? And what was different about them? And they'll start to rattle off characteristics, parts of their personality, skills, ability, background, all that kind of stuff that made the great people great. And when you happen to align with those people, you can actually respond with that information. For example, if they say, what's really made the best people great is those are the type of people who don't need to be told what to do. They're proactive. And you can say, oh, that's really interesting. It does make sense to me that would allow somebody to be more effective in this role. I think some of the reason I've been successful in my past roles is I also tend to be a bit of a proactive person. I understand the goals of my department deeply. And when I see something that I can do that can help us achieve those goals, I tend to take action. There you go. That's a great way for you to come off as a candidate who is really strong. Now, the next question I want you to ask is what I call the closing question. And you ask it at the very end. And you say, do you have any questions or concerns about my ability to do the job? They will go one of 2 ways. One, they'll go, no, I think you're a really good fit. In which case, you'll let them know that you're interested. You'll say, well, that's really good to hear. I'm very interested in this role. I also think I'd be a good fit, and I'm excited about next steps. That's letting them know you want the job without losing leverage. You're not eroding your leverage by saying that. You're just letting them know you want the job. And every hiring manager wants to extend an offer to a person who they know wants that offer. Now, the other thing that could happen is they could say, I do have a concern about A, B, and C. And this gives you the ability to rebuttal their concern. Otherwise, you would not have the chance to do this. But if they go, Ben, I don't think you have enough management experience, you could say, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me that feedback. I don't know if I did the best job, but when I worked for A, B, and C company, I actually managed a team of 8 people for about 3 years. And I actually really enjoy people management. So I'm sorry I didn't share that as much, but I actually really enjoy that facet of past roles. This is a chance for you to rebuttal their concern. Notice what I did though. I took accountability for not making it clear, not having it on my resume, and I defended myself in a non-defensive way. I just talked about how I actually did have that experience. And it's the best way to rebuttal a concern in the interview. And the reality is that concern, it exists whether you address it or not. But if you address it, it actually gives you a chance to overcome an issue they might have with extending you an offer. Now, if you're about to do your first interview and you're about to interview with a recruiter, that's a whole different ballgame. And good recruiters, they can actually tell when they're talking to a good candidate in the first 30 seconds. And it's why I made this video here. This video here teaches you how good recruiters spot great candidates in the first 30 seconds. So I'm done here, but I'll see you over there.